My name's Daniel Reyes, and 3 years ago I bought my dream house in Sunridge Meadows with a backyard pool I'd waited my whole life for. I never imagined that pool would become a battlefield and that my HOA president would try to destroy me over pool cabana chlorine and property lines. Christine Hallbrook ran the Sunridge Meadows HOA like her personal kingdom, clipboard always in hand, smile sharp as a blade. Neighbors called her Mega Karen, behind closed doors, terrified she'd find them for grass a quarter-inch too tall. I just wanted peace, a cold beer by my pool, and to raise my daughter somewhere safe. Christine had other plans. Christine had ruled the board for 11 years, re-elected unopposed because nobody dared run against her. She controlled the architectural committee, the landscaping fund, even which flag colors were approved for porches. Old Mr. Ferris got fined $400 for a birdhouse Christine called an unauthorized structure. The Patels repainted their door 3 times because Christine kept declaring grayish wasn't the correct grayish. Everyone paid, everyone stayed quiet, because Christine had a reputation for making dissenters' lives miserable. I'd heard whispers she once got a family's dog impounded over a leash-length technicality. My wife Sarah warned me before we moved in, "Just don't get on her radar, Daniel." I promised her I wouldn't. I was wrong within 6 months. It started, like most Karen stories do, with something laughably small. I installed a privacy fence around my new pool, permits filed, inspector approved, all above board. 2 days later, Christine showed up unannounced, measuring tape in hand, muttering about sight lines. "This fence violates HOA aesthetic guidelines," she announced, snapping photos like evidence for a trial. I showed her my approved permit. She waved it off. "The county isn't the HOA, Daniel." She said the fence height exceeded association bylaws by 3 inches, though my paperwork said otherwise. I asked to see the specific bylaw. She said she'd email it later. She never did. A week later, a violation notice appeared taped to my door. $150 fine, 7-day compliance window. I called the HOA office. The woman on the phone side and said, "Just pay it, honestly." I refused, filed a written appeal instead, requesting the exact bylaw section in writing. Christine didn't respond. Instead, my trash bin got randomly flagged for being visible from the street. Then my mailbox. Then my driveway sealant color. Small stings, one after another, deliberate and petty. I started to realize this wasn't about fences. This was about control, and I'd become a target. I started keeping a folder. Every notice, every email, every photo Christine's team sent me. My neighbor Priya pulled me aside one evening. "She does this to everyone who pushes back." Priya had fought Christine 2 years earlier over a garden gnome. She lost and quietly moved away. "Don't fight her alone," Priya warned. "She's got people on the board who owe her favors." I attended my first HOA meeting, hoping reason would work. Didn't. Christine ran the meeting like a courtroom where she was judge, jury, and prosecutor. When I raised the fence issue, she cut me off. "We don't relitigate closed violations, Daniel." Closed? I'd never gotten a hearing. My appeal had simply vanished from the record. I asked the treasurer for meeting minutes referencing my appeal. He looked at Christine, then at me. "I'll have to check on that," he mumbled and never followed up. That night I filed a public records request for HOA financial statements, just out of instinct. Something about the way everyone flinched around Christine told me there was more going on. 2 days later, a second fine appeared. Unauthorized pool equipment, $300, due within 5 days. My pool pump was standard, installed by a licensed contractor, identical to 3 other houses nearby. Those other houses got no fines, only mine. I began recording every interaction with Christine on my phone, just to protect myself legally. Sarah started losing sleep. "Is this really worth it, over a fence?" she asked me quietly. "It's not about the fence anymore," I told her. "It's about not letting her win." I hired a real estate attorney, Marcus Webb, who specialized in HOA disputes across the state. Marcus reviewed my documents and raised an eyebrow. "These fines don't cite actual bylaw numbers, Daniel. That's illegal, he said. HOAs must reference the specific violated provision. This looks retaliatory. He sent a formal cease and desist letter to the HOA board, citing improper enforcement procedures. Christine responded publicly at the next meeting, painting me as a litigious troublemaker disrupting community harmony. Several neighbors clapped. Others avoided my eyes, afraid of becoming her next target. But afterward, an elderly woman named Dolores pulled me into the parking lot, glancing around nervously. "I used to keep the HOA books," she whispered, before Christine had me removed for asking questions. My pulse quickened. What kind of questions? About the landscaping contract. It went to her brother-in-law's company, way over market price. That was twist number one. Christine wasn't just petty. She might be profiting off the HOA itself. Dolores refused to go on record, terrified of retaliation, but she pointed me toward old invoices. I filed another records request, this time specifically for landscaping and maintenance contracts, 5 years back. The HOA lost the older files, conveniently the years Dolores mentioned. Marcus said that alone was actionable record retention violations under state HOA law. Meanwhile, my fines kept coming. Unauthorized planter box, unapproved outdoor lighting, even my daughter's chalk drawings. Christine seemed to enjoy it, smiling at community events like she held all the cards. One afternoon, I caught her walking my property line with her phone, photographing my pool deck. "You're on private property," I said. She smirked. "HOA has inspection rights, Daniel. Read your covenant." I checked. The covenant required advance written notice for inspections. She'd given none. I started installing security cameras quietly around the pool and side yard for documentation. Sarah thought I was overreacting. I thought I was finally being smart. A week later, my camera caught something I never expected to see. Christine, alone, at 6 a.m., letting herself through my side gate with a spare key. She walked straight to my pool equipment and adjusted something on the control panel. My chlorine levels spiked dangerously high 3 days later. My daughter got a chemical burn on her foot. I didn't confront Christine immediately. I sat with the footage, hands shaking, thinking of my daughter's cry. Marcus told me to stay calm and build the case properly instead of reacting emotionally. "This isn't just an HOA dispute anymore," he said. "This could be criminal trespass, even assault." I asked myself who gave Christine a key to my side gate. I never had. I checked the lock. It was the same builder-grade lock every house in Sunridge Meadows used. The previous owner, it turned out, had once been on the HOA board with Christine. That was twist number 2. She likely kept a master key from years of inspections. I quietly changed every lock in the house that week, telling no one but Sarah and Marcus. For 2 weeks, things went eerily quiet. No new fines, no visits, just silence. I almost let my guard down, thinking maybe she'd realized she'd gone too far. Then Dolores called me late one night, voice trembling. "She knows you have cameras, Daniel." "How?" I asked. Dolores hesitated. "Someone on the board told her. Be careful who you trust." I began wondering if Marcus's office, or even my own neighbors, were feeding her information. I started splitting my evidence between 2 secure cloud accounts, just in case. During this quiet stretch, I got to know my daughter Mia's fear of the backyard she used to love. She wouldn't swim anymore. She asked if the mean lady was going to come back. That broke something in me. This was never just about property lines anymore. I promised Mia I'd fix it, even though I had no idea yet how. One evening, a woman I didn't recognize left an unmarked envelope in my mailbox. Inside was a printed spreadsheet, HOA Reserve Fund withdrawals, dated over the last 3 years. No note, no name, just numbers that made my stomach turn. Someone inside the HOA wanted Christine exposed just as badly as I did. Marcus analyzed the spreadsheet for 2 days straight, cross-referencing it with public tax filings. "Daniel," he finally said, "over $60,000 is unaccounted for in 3 years. Some withdrawals were labeled landscaping, others legal consulting, with no invoices attached anywhere. We traced one recurring payee, a company called Holbrook Ground Solutions. Holbrook, Christine's maiden name. That was twist number 3. She'd been paying herself the whole time. Marcus said this went beyond civil dispute. It bordered on embezzlement and fraud. But without a whistleblower willing to testify, proving intent legally would be difficult. I thought of Dolores, but she'd made clear she was too afraid to go on record. Then Christine escalated again, filing a formal complaint against me for unauthorized surveillance of her. She claimed my cameras violated her privacy, conveniently ignoring that she was trespassing when filmed. The board scheduled a special hearing, clearly stacked to favor her narrative. I brought Marcus my footage and copies of the anonymous spreadsheet, unsure what would happen. Christine arrived polished and confident, flanked by 2 board members who owed her favors. She opened by calling me a hostile resident harassing this community's leadership. Marcus calmly played the footage of her entering my property before dawn. Gasps rippled through the room. Even her allies shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Christine recovered fast. I was checking equipment safety, as is my right under the covenant. At 6 a.m., alone without notice? Marcus asked. She had no real answer. I then raised the chlorine incident, my daughter's burn, and the timing of her visit. Christine's smile finally cracked. That's a coincidence. Pool chemistry fluctuates naturally. A local news reporter, tipped off by someone in the community, had quietly slipped into the meeting. That was twist number 4. I hadn't invited any press. Someone else had. Christine noticed the reporter and visibly paled, her confidence evaporating in real time. She tried adjourning the meeting early, citing procedural issues, but residents shouted her down. For the first time in 11 years, Christine Holbrook looked genuinely afraid. The board voted to open a formal investigation into HOA finances, effective immediately. Christine stormed out, but not before locking eyes with me, promising silently this wasn't over. That night, my security cameras caught someone cutting the wires to my backyard system. I'd anticipated that. I'd already installed a second, hidden set of cameras weeks earlier. This backup system caught everything the first one missed, including a clear face. It was Christine, again, this time wearing gloves and a dark hoodie at midnight. She just crossed from civil dispute into criminal trespass and vandalism, caught on camera. I called the police the next morning and filed an official trespassing and vandalism report. Officer Ramirez reviewed the footage and confirmed it was clear enough for a formal case. Christine, informed of the investigation, went on the offensive through the neighborhood group chat. She accused me of fabricating footage and orchestrating a smear campaign against innocent community leadership. Several longtime residents, exhausted by years of her fines, began quietly messaging me their own stories. The Patels, the Farizes, even Priya, now willing to speak, having moved but still furious. I realized I wasn't building a case anymore. I was becoming a rallying point. Marcus suggested we file a class complaint alongside the criminal report, pooling everyone's documented grievances. 11 households joined within a week, each contributing fines, emails, and photos spanning years. Christine's allies on the board started distancing themselves, sensing the tide had turned hard. One board member, Gary, resigned suddenly, citing personal reasons nobody quite believed. Days later, Gary contacted me privately. He'd been threatened by Christine over a zoning favor. That was twist number 5. Christine had leverage on multiple board members, not just favors but blackmail. Gary agreed to testify, describing how Christine manipulated votes using information she dug up on neighbors. She knew about affairs, bankruptcies, immigration statuses, anything to keep board members compliant and silent. My stomach turned learning how deep her control ran beneath Sunridge Meadows' picket fence surface. Meanwhile, my own case moved forward. The DA's office confirmed charges: trespassing, vandalism, reckless endangerment. Reckless endangerment because tampering with pool chemicals near a child qualified as more than mischief. Christine hired an expensive attorney, denying everything, calling the whole thing a coordinated conspiracy. The local news story went viral online. HOA president caught sabotaging family's pool on camera. Reporters camped outside her house. Her once immaculate lawn now had a for sale sign nobody expected yet. She tried selling her house quietly, likely planning to flee before the investigation concluded. Marcus filed an emergency motion, citing risk of asset flight given the embezzlement evidence. A judge froze her personal accounts pending the fraud investigation into HOA reserve funds. Christine, cornered, lashed out publicly, accusing Dolores by name of conspiring against her. That backfired instantly. Dolores, no longer able to stay silent, agreed to testify formally. Dolores brought years of hidden records she'd secretly copied before Christine had her removed. Invoices, emails, even a recorded call where Christine bragged about keeping the idiots in line. That recording became the final nail, undeniable proof of intent, not mere incompetence. I sat in my kitchen that night, exhausted, watching a year of anger finally take real shape. Sarah squeezed my hand. "You did this the right way, Daniel. Slow and legal." Mia asked if the mean lady was going to jail. I told her, "We'll see, baby." The criminal trial date was set for early spring, alongside a separate civil fraud hearing. Christine's attorney tried 3 separate delay motions, all denied by an increasingly impatient judge. Local residents packed every pretrial hearing, wearing matching blue ribbons in silent protest. Christine still walked around town like nothing had changed, chin high, sunglasses on. She even tried campaigning for re-election to the board, astonishingly mid-investigation. Nobody ran against her for years. This time, 3 neighbors filed candidacy on the same day. I didn't run. I didn't need a title. I needed the truth on record. Marcus warned me the defense would attack my credibility, painting me as vengeful and obsessive. I braced myself, reviewing every camera timestamp, every document, every witness statement one final time. Christine's lawyer requested my full financial records, fishing for any excuse to discredit me. They found nothing because I'd kept everything meticulously clean since day one. The night before trial, Priya called just to say, "We're all behind you, Daniel." Dolores sent a single text. Finally. Sarah couldn't sleep. Neither could I. Mia, thankfully, slept peacefully, unaware of tomorrow's stakes. I kept replaying Christine's midnight face on camera, gloves and all, calculating and cold. Marcus reminded me the burden of proof was ours, but the evidence spoke for itself. "Juries don't like people who tamper with a child's safety," he said quietly. "Remember that." I nodded, though nothing about this felt like winning. It just felt like finally being heard. The morning of trial, dozens of Sunridge Meadows residents lined the courthouse steps in support. Local news vans returned, cameras rolling as Christine arrived, this time without a single smile. She looked smaller somehow, stripped of the podium and gavel that once made her untouchable. I took a deep breath, held Sarah's hand and walked into the courtroom. The prosecutor opened by playing the midnight trespassing footage for the jury, frame by frame. Christine's face, illuminated by pool lights, adjusting chemical dosages with gloved, deliberate hands. Gasps again, this time from jurors who hadn't yet grown numb to her audacity. The defense argued the footage was out of context, claiming routine safety maintenance. The prosecutor asked simply, "At midnight, wearing gloves, without notifying the homeowner, as required by law?" Christine's attorney had no clean answer, shuffling papers, buying time he didn't have. Next came Gary, visibly nervous, describing how Christine used personal secrets to control board votes. He named specific instances, specific dates, specific threats she'd made against him directly. The courtroom fell silent as he described her, saying, "Everyone has something to hide, Gary." Then came Dolores, steady despite her age, laying out 5 years of financial manipulation. She played her recording. Christine's own voice filled the courtroom, keeping the idiots in line. Christine visibly flinched, gripping the defense table, her polished composure completely gone now. The prosecutor connected the embezzled funds directly to Holbrook Ground Solutions, her own company. $62,000, funneled through fake landscaping invoices over 3 years, meticulously documented. My testimony came next. I described the fence, the fines, the chlorine spike, Mia's burn. I described watching my daughter refuse to swim in her own backyard out of fear. That was the moment I saw one juror wipe her eyes and I knew something had shifted. The defense tried one final gambit, claiming I'd staged everything for a lawsuit payout. Then Marcus revealed the twist nobody in the courtroom expected. Twist number 6. Christine had tried this exact scheme before in another state under her maiden name only. A prior HOA in Ohio had quietly settled a nearly identical embezzlement case 8 years earlier. She'd moved states, changed her public role slightly, and rebuilt her tiny empire from scratch. This wasn't her first kingdom. It was her second, and she'd never faced real consequences. The judge allowed the prior pattern as evidence of intent over furious defense objection. Christine's face drained of color entirely. Her attorney whispered something she visibly refused to hear. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Felt like 6 years. When they returned, the room went utterly silent. Every eye fixed on the jury foreperson. Guilty on trespassing. Guilty on vandalism. Guilty on reckless endangerment of a minor. The courtroom erupted in quiet gasps, then muffled applause the judge quickly silenced. The civil fraud case, running parallel, ruled against her for the full embezzled amount plus damages. Christine sat frozen, staring at nothing, the empire she'd built for 11 years collapsing in real time. I felt no triumphant smile, just a slow, quiet exhale I'd been holding for over a year. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. Christine faced restitution, probation, and a permanent HOA leadership ban. The judge specifically cited the child endangerment factor as reason for the harsher restitution amount. She was ordered to repay every cent of the $62,000 within 18 months. The state HOA regulatory board revoked her eligibility to serve on any association permanently statewide. That was twist number 7. Ohio's regulators, alerted by our case, reopened her old file too. She now faced a second restitution order from her previous victims, years after they'd given up hope. Her house, already listed, sold quickly. She moved out of Sunridge Meadows within the month. Nobody threw her a farewell party. A few neighbors watched silently from their porches instead. Gary was reinstated on a rebuilt, transparent board, this time with strict financial oversight rules. Dolores was invited back as treasurer, this time with full authority nobody could quietly remove again. The HOA adopted new bylaws requiring written notice for all inspections. No exceptions, no loopholes. Every resident who'd been unfairly fined received refunds, funded partly through Christine's restitution payments. Priya moved back into the neighborhood a few months later, finally feeling safe enough to return. My fence, the one that started it all, stayed exactly where I'd originally installed it. Mia slowly returned to the pool, first with floaties, then without, laughing again like before. Local news ran a follow-up story, how one family's fight exposed a statewide HOA scam. Reporters called me brave. I just felt like a tired father who refused to give up. Sarah framed the final court verdict letter and hung it quietly in our home office. Marcus told me our case became a template cited in 2 other pending HOA fraud lawsuits. I never wanted to be an example. I just wanted my daughter to swim in peace. Christine, last I heard, was working retail 2 states away, far from any board position. Some said justice was slow. For us, it finally, undeniably arrived. A year later, Sunridge Meadows felt like a different neighborhood. Lighter, friendlier, less afraid. Neighbors waved genuinely now, not the tight, cautious smiles of Christine's reign. We held a real community pool party that summer, the first one in over a decade. Mia swam until her lips turned blue, laughing, completely unaware of how hard-won that laughter was. I still keep that evidence folder just in case. Old habits from fighting a Karen die hard. Sometimes the scariest villains aren't strangers. They're the ones who hold the clipboard and the keys. Justice came, but it cost us a year of peace. A child's fear and quiet trust rebuilt slowly. We won. But some fences, once broken, take longer to mend than the wood itself.